The knife wasn't hidden. That's what chilled her most. It was lying right there in the back of the cutlery drawer, wrapped in a torn piece of cloth that used to be her grandmother's kitchen towel. Emma stared at it, not breathing. A long, bone-handled blade with a darkened groove running down its center, still specked with something rusty that hadn't been there the last time she cleaned. Her hand hovered over it, trembling. The world outside remained stubbornly normal, birds chirping, a distant lawnmower humming, but inside the house, something had cracked open. She didn't scream. She didn't call the police. She didn't even touch it. Emma slowly pushed the drawer shut and backed away, her mind scrambling for explanations, any that didn't end with the word murderer. She tried to tell herself it could be an old hunting knife, forgotten, stained from years ago. But something deeper knew better, because 2 nights ago her husband had come home late. His shirt was buttoned wrong, his knuckles bruised. When she asked, he just kissed her forehead and said, "Rough day at work." But he didn't work with his hands. The knife was a kino, a crack in the mask she had mistaken for a life. Emma sat down at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. A low hum of nausea was building in her stomach. She thought back to the news. A woman found dead in Old Town Park last week, strangled, but they hadn't released much else, except for the mention of puncture wounds. At the time, she felt a passing chill, the kind that fades after a few seconds. Now it felt like a knife twisting inside her. The sound of the front door clicking open snapped her head up. Footsteps, heavy, measured. She froze. The knife was still. In the drawer, too far now, she could hear him humming some old blues song just like always, calm, normal. She forced herself to stand, legs wobbling. "Hey babe," he called. "I picked up that wine you like." Emma swallowed. "Great," she replied, turning toward the hallway, forcing a smile onto her face as he rounded the corner. He looked the same messy hair, dimpled grin, warmth in his eyes. It was terrifying. The familiarity was a lie. Her eyes darted briefly. To his hands, no bruises today. Just that same silver wedding band reflecting the afternoon light. "You okay?" he asked. "You look pale." "Didn't sleep much," she lied. "Bad dreams." He stepped closer and kissed her temple. "You've always had those. Want me to run you a bath?" Emma felt her skin crawl. Maybe later. She sat down again, heart pounding behind her, ribs like a trapped bird. That night, after he fell asleep, she checked the drawer again. Still there, still stained. But now there was something else, a folded piece of paper beneath the cloth. She hadn't seen it earlier. Carefully, quietly, she unfolded it. A single sentence, in red ink. "You were supposed to stay asleep." Emma almost dropped it. She stared at the words, her breathing shallow. Her eyes went to the doorway of the bedroom. The shadows stretched out like claws. The clock ticked louder now. Every second a scream. The next morning, she left the house before sunrise, drove for hours. No destination, just the road and her own silent panic. She stopped only when the gas tank warned her. In a motel on the edge of nowhere, she turned on the news again. Another murder. Same area, same method. The reporter spoke about escalating brutality. No leads, no suspects. A witness mentioned a man with a kind voice. Her husband's voice. Emma turned off the TV and stared at her reflection in the black screen. She needed answers, proof, motive. She needed to know how many lies she'd swallowed over the years, mistaking them for love. Her phone buzzed. A message. From him. "Where are you? I'm getting worried. Please call me." She didn't reply. Instead, she searched his name on a database she'd never thought she'd need to use. Background checks, court records, even old yearbooks. At first, nothing stood out. Then she found it. A sealed juvenile record. Something scrubbed clean, buried deep, but still traceable if you knew where to look. The name of a girl same last. Name, a sister. No, cousin. Deceased. Found dead at 16. Case closed. Suicide, they'd said. But someone had challenged the ruling. Her father? A man who later disappeared. Emma stared at the screen until the letters blurred. The knock on her motel door came. Around midnight, 3 slow knocks. She froze. She hadn't told anyone where she was. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. You shouldn't have left. She crept to the peephole and looked. No one was there. But when she opened the door, a note was pinned to it with a THUMBTACK. No words, just a photo. Her sleeping. Last night, she backed into the room, heart in her throat, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. Someone had been in the room. Someone had watched her. She turned to grab her phone, but it was gone. And then the bathroom door creaked open, even though she'd locked it hours ago. Emma didn't scream. Her body wanted to, but something older and more primal kept her quiet. She backed up slowly as the bathroom door inched open, revealing only darkness within. The motel room was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your skin like wet cloth. She moved to the farthest corner, her eyes never leaving the door, waiting to see if someone he would step out. Nothing, just a quiet creak, and then stillness. She lunged toward the nightstand and yanked open the drawer, praying for a Bible, a pen, anything. Her fingers found an old rusted flashlight. Better than nothing. She flicked it on and pointed it at the bathroom. Slowly, she stepped forward. Every footfall landed like glass breaking. Her breath came in short bursts, loud in the still air. She reached out and pushed the door open with a flashlight's beam. Empty. But the mirror had a single fingerprint in the center. Just one, as if someone had touched it while staring at their reflection. Her stomach turned. She didn't touch it. She just backed away and locked the door again, jamming a chair beneath the handle. It wouldn't stop him if he really wanted. But it made her feel a little less exposed. She didn't sleep by morning. The motel clerk said no one had come in. No one had asked for her. No camera footage, just a shrug and a bored glance. Emma left without another word, heart thudding with every mile. She needed help, but she couldn't go to the police. Not yet, not without proof. They'd ask questions she wasn't ready to answer, and if she mentioned her husband, he'd know. Somehow, he always knew. Emma drove back home that night, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. There were things in that house files, old photos, maybe even more notes. Something he didn't know she knew how to find. Her husband was always careful, but everyone slips, especially those with secrets as heavy as his. The knife wasn't the only one. She remembered a locked chest in the garage. One he'd told her was full of old tools from his grandfather. She never believed him. She waited until 3 a.m. before slipping into the house. Dark, silent. That same familiar, suffocating warmth. She crept through the kitchen, past the living room where their wedding photo still hung. Her smile wide, his eyes warm, his hand on her waist. She stared at it for a moment, wondering how many lies lived in that frame. Then she moved on, careful. not to make a sound. The garage was colder than the rest of the house, smelled like oil and dust. The chest sat beneath the workbench, half buried beneath rags and empty boxes. She pulled them away and knelt in front of it, locked, but her husband wasn't as clever as he thought. She remembered where he kept the keys box in the laundry closet, taped under a shelf. Her fingers found them fast. The lock clicked open. Inside were photographs, not of them, not family memories, photos of women sleeping, crying, running. Some of the photos were taken from windows, others in alleyways, still others in what looked like motel rooms, just like hers. Some had names scribbled on the back, dates. A few had red X's drawn across their faces. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through them, faster now, heart galloping, and then she found it. A photo of herself. From 2 weeks ago, she was at the grocery store, reaching for a can of beans, her face half turned, unaware. On the back, it said, 2 left. She stared at that number. 2 left. 2 what? She grabbed the whole stack and shoved it into her bag. Closed the chest. Relocked it. She turned to leave and heard the front door open. She froze. Light-headed footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Then came his voice. Emma. She didn't answer. The garage door creaked open. She darted into the shadows behind the shelf, crouched. Low, her breath caught in her chest as the door swung wider. He stepped in, quiet, scanning. He was barefoot, in pajama pants, but he was holding something, a hammer. I saw your car, he said softly. Why didn't you come inside? She didn't move. He walked to the chest, paused. His eyes scanned the room, and stopped. The lock on the chest was slightly off-angle, not quite how he'd left it. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he whispered, almost too softly to hear, Why'd you open it, Em? Her pulse roared in her ears. He turned suddenly, scanning the darkness. Come out now, he said. I don't want to hurt you. You just need to understand. It was never supposed to be you. Her foot shifted against a wrench on the floor, clinking metal. He snapped toward the sound, raising the hammer. Emma bolted out the garage door, through the side gate, barefoot into the cold grass. Behind her, footsteps exploded into motion. He was fast, too fast. She veered toward the neighbor's yard, jumped the low fence, scraped her shin. Lights came on. A dog barked. Somewhere far off, a siren wailed. She made it to the end of the block before headlights lit her up from behind. A car screeched to a halt. She turned ready to run, but it wasn't him. A woman stepped out. Late 40s, short blonde hair, a badge glinting on her hip. Emma Carrington. She asked. Emma nodded, panting, shaking. I've been trying to reach you. I'm Detective Price. I need you to come with me. Emma hesitated. Why? The detective looked behind her, toward the shadows Emma had come from. Because your husband's been under surveillance for weeks, and we think he's not working alone. Emma's breath caught. Not working alone. Her knees nearly buckled. All this time, she'd been so focused on surviving him, his charm, his lies, the knife, the notes, that she hadn't even considered a second shadow, another pair of eyes, another mind, maybe watching her right now. Get in the car, Detective Price said, scanning the dark street. We don't have long. Emma obeyed without a word. The interior smelled like burnt coffee and leather. Price locked the doors, started the engine, and pulled away fast. How did you find me? Emma finally asked. We didn't, the detective said, glancing at her in the rear view. You called us. Emma blinked. I never. You sent us an email. Last night, attached photos, evidence, the works. Emma shook her head, slowly. No, that wasn't me. Price's jaw tensed. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The hum of tires filled the silence. I thought your department wasn't investigating him, Emma said. He's clean, on paper. We were watching him off the record. An internal lead. One of our officers had a sister who dated him. In college, she went missing. They never connected it officially, but some of us never let it go. Emma's hands curled into fists in her lap. You said he's not alone. Who, we don't know yet. But whoever it is, they're covering his tracks. The email came from a device in your name. Maybe cloned, maybe stolen. Either way, someone wanted us involved now. Emma stared out the window, mind spiraling. Why now? What changed? You. Did, Price said. You ran, you found something. The photos, the names, the numbers. Emma opened her bag and pulled out the envelope, handing it over. Price flipped through them, silent. Her face turned pale when she reached the photo of Emma in the grocery store. 2 left, she read aloud. God. She reached into her coat and pulled out her phone, snapping shots of the evidence. Where are we going? Emma asked. To a safe house. But even as she said it, Price's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, stiffened, pulled over. What? Is it? Dispatch just logged a 911 call from your home, Price said slowly. A man claimed his wife was missing. Said she might be suicidal. Named you. Emma's mouth went dry. He's already spinning a story, Price muttered. If we don't move fast, he's going to paint himself the victim. Cast doubt before you even open your mouth. Then let's move, Emma said. Whatever you need from me, I'll say it. They drove to an unmarked government building on the outskirts of town. Concrete, sterile, inside. A plain room with a metal table, a recorder, and a cup of stale coffee. Emma gave her statement. Every detail, the knife, the bruises, the photographs, the note pinned to her motel door, the bathroom mirror. Price listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When Emma finished, Price leaned forward. There's something you need to hear. She clicked a button on the recorder and played a voicemail. amansvoice.com/familiar. I know you're watching me. That's fine, I don't run. But I suggest you look a little closer at who you're trusting. People lie, people hide things. Sometimes, people plant things. Emma's blood chilled. Her husband's voice. But hey, the message continued. You already know that, don't you, Detective Price? The tape stopped. Emma stared at Price. What was that? Price looked tense. He's messing with us. But something was wrong. Emma's instincts flared. She looked closer at Price. The faint bruise on her wrist. The way she'd known where Emma was. The way she'd pulled over so suddenly. How long have you known him? Emma asked. What? Emma stood. Don't lie. That voicemail, he didn't sound scared. He sounded intimate. Price stood too. Sit down, Emma. But Emma backed away. You said he's not working alone. Maybe you weren't supposed to say that yet. Maybe it slipped. Price's expression hardened. You're tired. You're scared. And you're not thinking straight. Emma grabbed the envelope of photos, backing toward the door. Open it. Don't. Emma flung the door open and ran into the hallway. It was empty. She didn't know. Where to go, didn't care. Just ran, turning corners blindly, until she burst into a stairwell and slammed the door behind her. The echo bounced back like a threat. She made it to the bottom. Florand stopped. There, waiting in the hallway, was a man in a security uniform. He smiled. "Mrs. Carrington," Emma hesitated. "Who are you?" "Detective Price sent me." She said you panicked." Emma stepped back. "Badge." He paused, too long. Then his smile widened, and that's when she saw it. His hand tucked just inside his vest, holding something flat, a blade handle. She ran again, out the side door, into the cold night, through a fence, and across a field toward the blinking lights of a gas station. She didn't know if Price was compromised, or just played, but she knew this much. Someone had lured her there. Someone wanted her trapped. She made it to the station, banged on the glass, shouting. A young clerk opened the door, confused. "Call the police," she yelled. "Now, I'm being followed. He's right behind me." The clerk reached for the phone and then froze. Outside, a car pulled up. A black sedan. Out stepped her husband, and beside him Detective Price. Both smiling, both looking right at her, as if they had never been enemies, as if they'd never stopped being partners. Emma stumbled back as the automatic doors closed behind her, trapping her in the harsh fluorescence of the gas station. The young clerk was still holding the phone, frozen, staring between her and the man and woman now calmly approaching from outside. Her husband's arm casually swung a set of keys. Detective Price walked with her hands in her pockets, like she had all the time in the world. "Lock the doors," Emma hissed to the clerk. He didn't move. "Do it," she shouted. But the doors slid open again. Price entered first, flashing her. "Badge, we're responding to a 5150 call," she said smoothly. "Patient is experiencing acute paranoia. Could be dangerous." The clerk looked at Emma. "Is that true?" Emma grabbed a bottle off the shelf and raised it like a weapon. "They're lying." Price's smile didn't falter. "Ma'am, put the bottle down." Emma's eyes darted toward the back. There had to be another exit. Her heartbeat thundered. Her husband stepped forward now, voice low and warm. Come on. You're scared. I get it. But this, you're making it worse." She could feel his presence like a noose tightening. The clerk raised his hands uncertainly. "I think maybe we should wait for actual police." "They're on their way," Price said. "Let's just keep everyone calm until." Emma bolted toward the back. Price cursed and lunged, but Emma ducked behind an aisle and threw the bottle. It shattered, buying her 2 precious seconds. She crashed through the employees-only door and into a dim, cluttered hallway lined with storage. The emergency exit was at the end, metal, rusted, and blessedly unlocked. She burst out into the alley behind the station and sprinted into the night. Somewhere behind her, Price and her husband were yelling, chasing. Tires screeched. Lights danced, but Emma was already gone. She ran 4 blocks, ducking behind dumpsters and fences, through yards and driveways, until she finally collapsed in a narrow alley wedged between 2 warehouses. Her lungs burned, her legs shook, but her mind had never felt sharper. She wasn't safe, not anywhere, and she couldn't trust the police, not when one of them was hunting her. She needed someone outside the system. Emma remembered someone. A friend of her older brother, Jake Varela. A dropout, a hacker, a conspiracy nut who once tried to build an EMP device in high school. Everyone laughed at him, but Emma remembered how he used to crack teacher passwords just to change his locker. Number 4, fun. She hadn't seen him in years, but she knew where to find him by morning. She reached the east side, the industrial ruins, where people like Jake vanished off the map. She found him in a converted bus, parked behind a junkyard, surrounded by solar panels and tangled wires. He answered the knock with a half-eaten Pop-Tart in one hand and a drone controller in the other. "Emma," he blinked. "Holy, what happened to you?" "I need your help," she said. "It's about my husband." Jake looked her over. "You married that guy?" "Yeah," she whispered. "And I think he's killed people." Jake raised his eyebrows. "I'm listening." Inside the bus, Emma told him everything. The photos, the knife, the chase, the email that wasn't hers, price, the gas station. She dumped the envelope onto his cluttered table. Jake's fingers twitched like a musician approaching a piano. "Okay," he muttered. "You want proof? Let's get proof." Over the next few hours, Jake dug through server logs, cloned Emma's cloud account, and set up dummy data crawlers to scrape dark web chatter. He traced the email that had been sent by Emma to a proxy server based in a closed network belonging to, of all things, a psychiatric institution. The connection had been wiped clean, but Jake found traces of a temporary profile created just long enough to attach the files. "Whoever did this," he said. Eyes wide, they knew exactly what they were doing. "Like ex-intelligence level." "Clean," Emma nodded slowly. "My husband said he worked in security. Private. That's how he paid off my student loans." Jake stared at her. "Emma, this goes way beyond one guy." He clicked open a folder of surveillance shots he'd scraped from unlisted feeds. Emma's breath hitched. There were photos of Jake's bus from last night, taken before she even arrived. "They knew you'd come here," Jake said. "Someone sent this camera drone out here hours before you showed up. That's planning. They're watching everything." Emma's hands shook. "Then we have to go." "No," Jake said. "We go loud." He backed up all the files and set them to dump online if anything happened to either of them. He contacted an old podcast journalist who loved covering true crime conspiracies. He pushed everything to her encrypted inbox. "Now there's a clock," Jake said. "They'll either run or escalate." Emma watched the footage again. One image showed her husband talking to someone else, not Price. A man in a suit, dark glasses, sharp jaw, familiar somehow. Jake zoomed in. "You know him." Emma's heart skipped. No, it can't be." "What? That's my therapist." Jake stared. "He's involved." Emma nodded slowly. "I told him everything, about the fears, about the knife, about the bruises. He told me it was stress. He said, sometimes trauma makes us invent things to protect ourselves." Jake's expression hardened. "They're gaslighting you." Emma looked up. "They're building a case that I'm insane." Jake reached for his gear. "Then we burn them down, digitally speaking." But just as he said it, all the lights in the bus cut out. Every screen went black. The hum of the solar converter died. Jake froze. "No, no, no. They just hit us with a signal scrubber. We've been..." A voice crackled over the emergency radio. It wasn't her husband. It was the therapist's voice, calm, cold. "Emma, you've wandered off the path. You're scaring people. You're hurting people. I need you to remember what's real. Let us bring you home." Jake moved toward the breaker. Box, a red dot appeared on his chest. Emma screamed too late. A single muffled shot echoed inside the metal walls. Jake crumpled before he could even speak. Emma's scream tore from her throat as she dove to the floor behind the table. the sound of the suppressed gunshot still ringing in her skull. Blood was pooling fast. She crawled to him, shaking, trying to press her hands to the wound in his chest, but his eyes had already glazed. There was no time to mourn, no time to think. She grabbed the satchel Jake always kept slung over his chairs, stuffed with hard drives, burner phones, batteries, and God knew what else, and bolted out the side of the bus. Just as another shot shattered the window above her. The yard was too open, the fences too low. She ducked behind a rusted car and kept moving, weaving through the maze of junk and scrap, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Every second she expected another red dot to find her, but it didn't, not yet. Whoever pulled that trigger wanted to corner her, not kill her. The therapist's voice echoed again, this time from a speaker mounted on one of the nearby Polsjek's hacked PA system. Emma, listen to me. You've been very, very sick. You have no idea how far this has gone, but you can still come home. We can help you. All you have to do is stop running. Her vision blurred with rage. They killed Jake. They spun this web from every angle. Her husband, the detective, the therapist. How long had they been planning this? Were they watching her even before the marriage? She climbed through a fence hole Jake had cut long ago, emerging in an alley behind a mechanic's shop. An old man inside stared as she ran past, bleeding and wild-eyed, the satchel clutched tight to her chest. He didn't try to stop her. 2 blocks later, she found herself at an abandoned church she remembered. From childhood stone, soot-stained, with boarded windows and a crumbling bell tower. She forced open the side door and collapsed inside. She didn't cry. Instead, she dumped Jake's satchel and got to work. One of the burner phones still had power. She scanned the drives. Most were encrypted, but one opened easily. Inside, folders labeled insurance, Chrono, Cassidy, Dr. Vale, Dr. Vale. Her therapist. She clicked it open. Audio, recordings. She listened, her voice, crying, talking about fear, about waking up to her husband standing over her, about blackouts, guilt, shadows in her memory. And then, his voice, calm and careful, nudging her again and again. Trauma can fabricate entire narratives. Are you sure these bruises weren't from sleepwalking, Emma? You said you found a knife, but can you prove it was used in a crime? Do you think maybe you're projecting something onto your husband? Gaslighting, systematic? Cold, then came the recordings she hadn't known he'd made of her husband. I don't care if she suspects. Just keep her sedated and confused, long enough to finish. You know what's at stake. 2 more, then we're done. The time stamp was from a week ago. Jake had everything, names, proof, connections, and now he was dead. She knew what she had to do. Emma sent everything to every journalist. Jake had contact info for. She uploaded it to open forums, subreddits, data leaks, 100 locations at once. She posted files with labels like the Vale Protocol, coercion network, corrupted law. It wouldn't stop them immediately, but it would blow the mask off. Then she wrote a message. If you're reading this, I might already be dead. But so are their secrets. Then she powed everything down and waited, not to hide, but to bait them. By sundown they came, 3 SUVs, unmarked, silent men in suits, tactical gear. Not police. She watched from the shadows as they spread out, sweeping the church like they knew every corner. But they weren't careful. They were overconfident. She used that. Emma waited until the last one passed her hiding spot, then struck him with a steel beam Jake had kept in his bag. He collapsed with a grunt. She took his earpiece, his sidearm, and moved. One by one, she took them out, not with brute force, but misdirection, traps, noise. One fell through rotting floorboards. Another tripped the bell rope and got disoriented. By the sound, she found Price near the altar, gun drawn, backlit by candlelight, like some corrupted priestess. "Emma," Price said calmly, "it's over. You sent the files. Do you think that will stop this? I think it already has. You killed 2 men tonight. You killed Jake." Price tilted her head. "He was a liability. You are, too. But unlike him, you're valuable." Emma took a step forward, gun steady. "Why me?" "Because you weren't supposed to remember," Price said. "You were born in one of the early trials. A control case. You've been monitored since age 5. You had gaps, didn't you? Strange thoughts, missing weeks. That wasn't trauma. That was programming." Emma froze. "What are you talking about?" "They called it the Vale Protocol," Price said. "It was supposed to create high-functioning subjects from trauma survivors. Conditioned obedience. You failed, but they didn't want to throw you away, so they placed you with one of their handlers, your husband." Emma felt the floor spin beneath her. She had been chosen, not loved, raised in lies, used. Emma fired. The bullet struck Price in the shoulder. She went down with a scream. Emma walked up and aimed again. "Tell me who else is involved." Price laughed through the pain. "You think this ends here. I think it ends with you." Before she could pull the trigger, a new voice echoed from behind. "Hello again, Emma." She turned. Her husband stood just beyond the flickering candlelight, not armed, not afraid. Smiling, he held up his hands. "Let me explain. Not as your husband, not even as your handler, but as the only person who knows what's coming." Emma didn't lower the gun, and then he said something that froze her in place. "You were never the subject, Emma. You were the control." She blinked. "What?" Price groaned on the floor. "Don't tell her. She deserves to know," he said gently, "because everything changes now." And then, from somewhere deep within the church, a child's voice called softly, "Mummy." Emma's blood turned to ice. The voice wasn't a recording. It was real, soft, fragile, impossible. She turned toward the sound, heart pounding so hard she couldn't hear anything else. A shadow moved in the far hallway beneath the collapsed choir loft, small, hesitant, a child. A little girl in a white dress, stepping into the flickering candlelight with wide, frightened eyes. Emma's breath caught. Her gun wavered. The girl looked no older than 6. Curly dark hair. Familiar eyes. Too familiar. Her knees buckled. The man, her husband, watched her face carefully. "Do you remember now?" Emma couldn't move. She couldn't even breathe, because she did remember. Not all at once, but in flashes raw and jagged, ripping through her skull. A hospital room, beeping monitors, blood, screaming, her own voice. Screaming for the baby, her daughter, Lena. She had been pregnant. She had given birth. And then they told her the baby died, that she'd lost it, that the trauma made her spiral. They institutionalized her for months afterward. Dr. Vale had helped her recover. Her husband had stayed by her side, loving, patient, lies they never buried. A body because there wasn't one. "She's yours," he said gently. Ours. Emma fell to her knees. "No. She's alive because of you, because we didn't let you remember. The Vale Protocol was never meant to hurt you. It was meant to protect what came after you. She's different. She's different. She's single quotes ass ... valuable. Lena stood frozen in the archway, confused, lips trembling. She's not a project, Emma said, voice cracking. She's a child. Her husband smiled again, but there was something strange behind it. Regret or calculation. You were the first. Control subject to survive long-term conditioning. We watched you for years. You were never meant to be operational, but your instincts evolved. You broke the loop. You found the knife. You ran. And now, the truth's out, and we can't stop it. He stepped closer to the girl, putting a hand on her shoulder. But we can salvage her future. Emma pointed the gun at him again, hands shaking violently. Don't touch her. He looked directly into her eyes. You can shoot me, Emma, but then you'll never know how much of her was you, and how much was us. Emma's mind spiraled through every moment of the last few months, every bruise, every silence, every flicker of unease, and behind all of it her daughter. The daughter they told her was gone. She couldn't shoot, not yet. You kept her from me, she whispered. You built a life around a lie, and you let me suffer. He didn't deny it. Behind her, Price coughed from the floor, crawling slowly toward her dropped sidearm. Emma didn't look away from her husband. Why now? She asked. Why bring her here? Because it was never about us, he said. It was about the people behind us. The ones you haven't met yet. The ones who built the system that shaped you and who want Lena back, before she wakes up. Emma blinked. What? She's already showing signs. Memory projection, pattern anticipation, neural mimicry. She's not like other children, Emma, and when they realize the files are out, they'll come for her. Suddenly, the church lights flared, floodlights through the broken windows. Dozens of headlights from all directions. A swarm of vehicles boxed in the old stone chapel. Black vans. Helicopters rumbling low overhead. Had found them. Her husband didn't move. They won't shoot me, he said. Not yet, but they will take her. No, Emma whispered, grabbing Lena's hand. Over my dead body. They'll make sure of that, he said quietly. Gunfire cracked through the window. The wall behind Emma exploded in dust and stone. She grabbed Lena and dragged her behind the pulpit as bullets tore through pews and shattered stained glass. Price reached her gun and fired a single shot, but it wasn't at Emma. She hit a soldier rappelling through the roof. Go. Price screamed. Take her and run. You think I didn't know what this was? I was a pawn, just like you. Emma didn't hesitate. She yanked Lena into her arms and sprinted through the rear hallway, dodging debris and bodies, deafened by gunfire. Her husband vanished into the fray, shouting something she couldn't hear. Price was still shooting when they made it to the side passage, her blood smearing across the cracked tile floor, out the back. Into the night, she ran until her lungs nearly collapsed. Lena clutched her, face buried in her shoulder. They reached the woods. Emma ducked behind a rotting log, breath frozen in her throat. Lena looked up at her finally, tears in her eyes. Mummy, I dreamed about this, she said softly. Emma blinked. What? I saw you run. I saw the lights, and I heard them say my name, but they didn't know I was listening. Emma held her tighter. You remember me, she whispered. Lena nodded. I never forgot. From somewhere behind them, a metal dog barked, mechanical tracking, fast. They were being hunted again, but this time, Emma wasn't running alone. She had something more dangerous than any file, more valuable than any data. She had Lena, and whatever they had done to her daughter, they had no idea what she was capable of, because Lena turned her head toward the noise, narrowed her eyes, and whispered, "They're close. 5 of them. One's hurt." Emma stared at her. "How do you know that?" Lena looked up, smiling faintly, "Because one of them just stepped on your phone." Emma didn't think, she just moved, grabbed Lena, rolled behind the roots of a fallen tree as the phone she'd forgotten was still tracking them, cracked under a soldier's boot. A beam of light swept over the spot they'd just vacated. "Close. Too close." Lena's voice had been calm, eerie. Not a guess, not fear, a fact. She knew. The soldier knelt where they'd been, scanning the forest with infrared goggles. 2 others flanked him. Emma reached for the sidearm Price had shoved in her bag before they split. Not enough bullets. No angle. Lena tapped Emma's arm. "They can't see us right now. The trees are thick here, but they're afraid of you." Emma blinked. "Why would they be?" "They think I'll wake up fully," Lena said, voice barely a whisper. "If you die." A jolt of cold sliced through Emma's spine. "What do you mean, wake up?" Lena looked down. "Dr. Vale said I was the first hybrid, that I was made from both kinds, but it only works if you forget who you are first. That's why they erased you. But it's leaking. Emma asked, but a crunch of branches cut her off. One of the soldiers stepped closer. Emma steadied the gun. She had 1 shot before they'd fire blindly. Then Lena raised a hand. The man paused. His rifle lowered an inch. He looked left, then right, as if he suddenly couldn't tell which direction the target was. He stumbled back 2 steps, confused, disoriented. Emma stared at Lena. "What did you?" "I showed him something," Lena whispered. "Just a little." Another soldier rounded the clearing. Emma fired. He dropped. Chaos broke out. Shouts, flares, erratic red lights slicing through trees. Emma grabbed Lena's hand and bolted for the ridge, every step echoing with gunfire. But the soldiers were no longer coordinated. They were scattering, firing wildly, radio signals crackling with confusion. "She's jamming them," Emma realized aloud. "No," Lena said softly. "I'm just inside." They reached the top of the ridge, looking down at the wreckage of a black van that had flipped, trying to cut them off. Something was wrong with the whole team. Voices screaming through comes about. Friendly fire, misidentified. Targets, hallucinations. One man was crying. Emma pulled Lena behind a boulder, panting. "How are you doing this?" "I don't know," Lena said. "I just feel what they don't want me to feel." The realization hit Emma like a blow. Lena wasn't just seeing thoughts, she was undoing them, overriding fear with fear, vision with illusion, confusion as a weapon. They weren't chasing a girl anymore. They were chasing something they'd never contained, and it was too late. Far below, her husband emerged from the tree line, blood on his face. Alone, he looked up the ridge, straight at them. Even at this distance, Emma saw it. He knew. He held up his hands again, like back in the church. "Emma," he called. "She can't be out here. You don't understand what she's becoming. She's mine." Emma shouted. He didn't flinch. "She's theirs. You're just a vessel. A test case that broke containment. I loved you, but they made her from something else. You don't know what she'll do next. She doesn't." Emma raised her gun. "Then I'll be the one to find out, not you." Lena pulled her hand gently. "Mum, he's stalling." And then they heard it. A second wave, coming from behind. More. Drones, tactical dogs, four-wheeled crawlers. Run, Emma said. They ran through the forest, guided only by Lena's whispered instincts, left at the riverbed, right at the old mine shaft, down through a tunnel that hadn't seen light in decades. When they reached the underground chamber, rusted freight elevator Longberry Day stopped. Emma leaned against the wall, legs shaking. How far does this go? Lena stepped into the darkness, farther than they know. Jake said there's an exit here. I saw it in his mind. Emma blinked. When did you? I touched him in the bus. Just for a second, she smiled softly. He was kind. He wasn't afraid to die for you. Emma swallowed hard. She hadn't cried since this started, not even when Jake fell. But now, in the dark, her daughter's voice, her daughter's mind cracked something inside her. She let it out, silent tears in the shadows. I don't know how to protect you, she whispered. You already are. They rode the elevator, down into the deep, emerging into cold tunnels. Ancient and abandoned. No trackers worked here. No eyes saw. But even in the silence, Emma knew it wasn't over. The files Jake uploaded were out. The Vale Protocol was exposed. The truth about what they'd done to her and what they made Lena to be was unraveling. Somewhere above, a storm was coming. Governments would collapse. Institutions would panic. Because they hadn't created a tool, they'd awakened a force. And Lena, this girl, born of lies and shadows, was no longer their subject. She was their reckoning. Emma looked down at her child, dirt-streaked, wild-eyed. Breathing hard but steady, Lena took her hand. Mum. Yes, when this is over. Emma waited. Will I still be real? Emma knelt beside her. You're more real than any of them ever were. And above them, in the collapsing world they'd left behind, her husband whispered into a burning radio. They got away. A pause, then a reply. A voice Emma would have recognized if she were still listening. Dr. Vale, cool, unmoved. Let them run. We were never hunting them. Silence. We were waking her up.